So thank you so much, Bess, for taking this time and talking to me and us. And I just told the audience a bit about who you are, and you've been here on this stage. You've actually been here a few years back, and we're very grateful for that. And now let's talk about Camp Siegfried. How did you get the idea to write the play?
Well, it sort of happened serendipitously. A few things sort of came together at the same time. I had never heard of Camp Siegfried. I had never really heard of this sort of chapter in American history because we don't talk about these camps very much. But I happened to be staying in a house in a town called Bellport on Long Island, which is just outside of New York. I live in New York. And I started looking into the history of the town where I was staying. And I found that 10 minutes away, there was a town called Yaphank, which is where the play is set. And that in Yaphank, there had been this incredibly dark and disturbing history of a camp, Camp Siegfried, that trained American youth in Nazi ideology. And I couldn't believe it. And I started looking at these pictures on the internet, and I felt like I was looking at pictures of Nazi Germany, even though they had been taken 10 minutes away from where I was in this very beautiful, idyllic American setting. And so it sort of scrambled my brain a little bit, and I felt like I had to know more, and I started digging into it and felt that the story really had to be told.
And why? Why do you think you felt that it had to be told, as you say?
Well, the other thing that was happening in my life and in American life at the time was the reelection campaign of Donald Trump, which ignited a lot of far right hate groups in America and empowered them, and a sort of reckoning around the murder of George Floyd, and a sense that America really hadn't looked at its own dark history and examined the ways in which maybe Americans are not perfect and heroic all of the time. You know, we don't want to look at those chapters. We sort of sweep them under the rug. So it felt like these really disturbing elements of American culture were sort of coming out and making themselves known, and were sort of needing to be talked about, and also difficult to talk about. And so in a way, talking about this particular moment and looking at how it could have happened in America was a way of talking about history in order to examine the present. You know, I was sort of thinking, like, we need to look at ourselves. We need to look at what this mythology is, and also just sort of examine how human beings are pushed to this point. And so looking backward was a way of looking at now.
Right. And you said the haters, so to speak, and still what it is a love story. Camp Siegfried is your play is a love story. So can you tell me about that?
I know, it's surprising to me as well, honestly, because it's not the story that you would expect to find. You know, it's not a history lesson. It really is about two teenagers trapped in this very strange and disturbing environment, and damaging environment. So I think it felt scary to me to look at a love story in this context. And whenever I find something really scary, I, of course, have to run straight towards it because that's how I'm built. But I was really interested in the question of delusion, how people become deluded, and how we know what's a delusion and what's reality. And to fall in love requires an enormous amount of delusion. In a way, it's a happy delusion. We embrace it, but you have to believe that this other person is perfect and they're going to totally satisfy you in every way for the rest of your life. And there's a sort of story that we tell ourselves as we fall into that experience. And so that's happening to these two teenagers in the play. And yet at the same time, they're being asked to participate in this other enormous delusion, which is that some kinds of people are better than others, and that there's a right way to be and a wrong way to be in terms of, you know, what your genetics are. And they're sort of being taught a whole other set of delusions. And so I was interested in looking at how we know what delusions to fall for in life and what stories to pick, and looking at it in this incredibly sort of heightened and intense moment in life, which is the teenage years, where everything just feels so momentous. all of that felt really rich to me in terms of the questions that are being asked in the play.
And given that to be well, to make an assumption based on statistics, so most of the theater goers will think that, well, we are not deluded. We don't have this delusion, so to speak. So
Right.
what is your hope for this audience? Like if they already think, what do you want to have the effect on them?
Yeah, I think there's a way in which we sort of choose our delusions, right? Your question makes me think of the fact that I think is also important to the play, that coming to the theater is sort of a willing act of engaging with a delusion or an illusion, right? We present something to you and we ask you to participate and we ask you to join in, and people beautifully come and do it willingly. So I think, what I'm interested in having the audience start to question or start to ask about is, where in my life do I participate in these sort of illusions in a beneficial way, and where am I maybe sucked down a rabbit hole that is harmful, and sort of asking, what does it take to really look at reality? And of course, there's this inherent contradiction in the play, because a play is not reality, and it's a play that's asking you to look at what's real and what's not. So all of these kind of questions, I hope, are very alive for the audience as they participate in the experience of the play.
Thank you. And maybe we talked earlier, maybe we will have the pleasure seeing you in Stockholm again in November. And hopefully you get to experience that the audience experience what you hope for.
Oh, I really hope to come. I love your theater so much, and I had such a wonderful time there during Small Mouth Sound. So it would be a dream to come back. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we hold our thumbs as we do in Sweden. You cross your fingers.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.